Yo guys, so today I'm going to be talking about preparing for CC2, which is probably going to release mid to late January or sometime in early Feb. Honestly, it depends on a lot of things, as they have been trying to mix events here and there for a while, just because of the first anniversary. Anyway, this is the team we're looking with. Oh, not that. This is the team we're working with. Honestly, it's not that imposing, and the requirements for Risk 18 seem to be much lower than CC1. Thank God for that. CC1 Week 1 Risk 18 had a pretty high requirement, but you know, this team looks fine. All of it should be around, all the operators should be around E1 max level. That's kind of the lowest requirement for this. I also shouldn't be having Silver Ash. It should be. Well, I'm just going to take him off for now. How do you take him off? You basically want to get a friend's Eyjafjalla in that slot, and the 2 slots is closed up from the Risk. So just to list out the core operators, so it's easier for you guys to kind of switch and mix up what you need to do there, how you need to do it, who to replace, etc, etc. So it runs down as 1 fast redeployment unit, 2 healer tanks, 1 strong tank, a Myrtle, a DP generator vanguard is fine, but you really should have Myrtle. And then moving along, we have 1 tanky vanguard. I don't really have a tanky vanguard because they're kind of niche, but scavenger works. I've got bagpipe, but I think the lowest and recommended operator is courier, so you can use him if you want to, if you have him invested for whatever reason. And then it goes to a healer, a single target caster, and a sniper. And as I said before, you have Eyjafjalla looking up at this slot. This is basically the low investment setup to use, and it involves in tanking and bursting down with your casters. And in this case, if you're borrowing an Eyjafjalla, the Eyjafjalla volcano skill is where you kind of clear the board. It's a board wipe in that sense. And if you want to see any of the setups working, I'll be putting the links down in the description below. Now, I do suggest this team because it is the easiest and I think it has the best success rate. However, if you don't want to borrow an AF for whatever reason, don't know why you would, you can try this alternative setup. It's going to be a similar clear method. However, you basically add in a supporter instead to slow down the enemies so that you have more DPS uptime. Also, you can add in a third caster. You add in a third caster instead of a tank, which in my opinion is less stable of a clear and would depend on a more tighter DPS windows, which is created by your supporter slot. Honestly, both team setups are good. They aren't that tight. You can reliably replace any other operator of the same type with those I've shown. Like, you can change over my meter here for any snipers. You can even add in Crocodile if you have her, leveled up or maxed. If you're going with the first setup, you can also replace this Eyjafjalla slot with any border wipes, good border wipes. Like, if you have Silver Ash like I do, then he would probably be sufficient. You'll probably have to mess with where to slot him, when to use his ability, but if you like myself, have Silver Ash relatively leveled up as well as M3 his ability, then he can definitely be that replacement. Personally, I'm gonna go with this setup. I do have much better OPs here, and I'll be looking at borrowing a friend's Eyjafjalla, just because I think it is much easier to use Eyjafjalla than, you know, trying to time my Silver Ash, for example. As you can see here, the setup is basically a mixture of, you know, the main setup I showed you and the alternative, including Angie as supporter, just because Angie's like really strong, right? So yeah, this is what I'm going to be running with, and I don't see any problems with this CC. It seems relatively easy enough. Now, on to the next part. I'm going to look at, you know, operators that are useful for clearing CC1, whilst overlapping operators with good investments in the future. So say you're like a mid-tier level player, this is probably a good section for you, because say you're using this main setup and you need 3 defenders and you're like, oh wait, I don't have 3 defenders. And what's more, you need 2 healer defenders. And so therefore I would suggest you investing into Nurl or Gummy, as they're generally quite useful, especially if you don't have Saria, right? I've only leveled up Nurl. I haven't leveled up Gummy because I do have Saria, so that's my 2 healer slots. But honestly, you can also level up Spot. Spot is really good. He was MVP in CC0, he was useful there, and he's useful in the upcoming CC2 as well. And to be honest, for a 3-star to be so useful in 2 CCs, which is the hardest content in Arknights, go for him. Next on the list is supporters. Supporters are generally the CC meta going forward, as you can call it. So if you have Angie, Shamare, Suzuran, they could be slotted into this alternative setup, and they'll be for sure useful in the future. So I wouldn't worry about investing into supporters too much. They are awesome. They are really good. In terms of single target casters that you need, I've leveled up Stuart here. He's kind of like Spot. He's really good in certain maps, and he's low investment. You know, you can do that. I would also suggest investing in E2 Amir anyway. I've got E1, right? But E2 Amir is pretty good. She's useful, and spoiler alert, I guess, Amir has a guard version coming up in the future, and it's surprisingly good, so Amir is definitely worth your investment. And also, guard knights is a thing. Guards are OP, so investing into any guards is very good. For other casters, you kind of just want Aya. Aya is said to be the god of casters. Especially, she just out DPSs a lot of AoE casters. I think AoE casters aren't that great from what I've heard. You know, Ifrit's situational, and then Skyfire lacks a bit of DPS, so A is definitely where you want. Sniper wise, I don't really recommend too heavily investing in snipers, especially with W coming up. So if you haven't been already doing so, you should be saving for W's banner. She's just so good, and she's going to be coming really soon now. W, Weedy, as well as, I can't remember his name, but the Myrtle replacement, he's also very good. So I wouldn't too heavily invest in snipers at the moment, but you know, one sniper's great. If you're like me, I've only invested in one sniper, which is Exia. The rest are, you know, Greythroat at level 55, so snipers aren't that needed, to be honest. I can do with, like, you know, Helga, DPS, Bagpipe, DPS, etc. But anyway, that's it. Please leave a like, subscribe, and turn the bell on for more Arknights videos. If you have any questions about switching up operators or who to invest in, just leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to reply it. See you next time. Peace.